So let's look at how CN and getline work in the same program. So remember, we use getline when we want to read into a string that has spaces. Okay, because if you just use CN to read into a string, it will read up to a space. So I have this program written which will read in a phrase, print it out, and then it'll read in an integer and print it out. So if I run this, I can enter a phrase, happy days, and then integer 34. So I'm going to run it again, happy days. And when I enter an integer, how this works is it ignores any new lines or white space before it gets to a character, and then it will look to see if that character makes up an integer. So I can put spaces here, I can hit a bunch of new lines, and then if I do 45, it'll say I entered 45, because CN will ignore all of that, and then when it gets to the 4, it will look to make sure that's an integer, and then it looks at the next character. Getline does not work like that. Getline will look at the exact next character that's sitting in the input stream. And so if I change these around, and I'll put this up here, and I run this, enter an integer, 45, and then enter a phrase, because what is happening when this executes, this statement right here left the new line in the input stream. So it picked off the 45, and then that new line is still sitting there in the input stream. Because CN would just ignore that. If I had another CN right after this CN, it would ignore that new line, right? Like we saw before. But getline doesn't work like that. It will just pick off the next character, and it will read that into a phrase. So getline will read all the characters up to a new line. And so if new line is the next character in the input stream, it will just read that new line and the phrase will be empty. And you can see that the new line was issued or executed, so it entered that, and then it prints out nothing. It's just empty. So how can I take care of this? Well, there's a couple different ways. You can use CN get, and CN get will just get the next character in the stream and get rid of it. So this will take the new line and ditch it. It'll just delete it. Okay, so that will work. So if I do 45, enter a phrase, fun times. So that all works.